You ever wonder how a self-driving car navigates a busy street? Or how your phone can just, magically create a 3D scan of your living room? Well, it's all about something called 3D vision. And there's a new AI model, Depth Anything 3, that's tackling this huge problem with a surprisingly simple idea.
Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll dig into why 3D vision is such a tough puzzle to crack. Then, we'll check out Depth Anything 3's super minimalist solution. After that, we'll see its really clever training method, look at the jaw-dropping test results, and finally, explore what this whole breakthrough really means for the future.
All right, first things first, the 3D vision puzzle. Think about it. For any machine, whether it's a robot or an augmented reality headset, to really interact with our world, it needs to understand 3D space, just like us. But, and this is the kicker, teaching a machine to do that has been a massive, massive headache for years.
Yeah, for the longest time, the whole field has been completely fragmented. The best way to think about it is like this. Imagine going to a different specialist doctor for every single part of your body, instead of just one general doctor who understands how everything works together. That's kind of what 3D vision has been like.
And this really shows you how inefficient that old way was. You had all these different tasks, right? Estimating depth, mapping a room, and every single one needed its own custom-built, super specialized AI model. It was crazy. Even though these problems are all related, they were treated like totally separate things, a really complex, siloed system.
So, that was the old, complicated way. Which brings us to the big question. What's the fix? Well, this is where Depth Anything 3 comes onto the scene and basically flips the whole table. It proposes a radical new idea that just steps away from all that complexity.
The researchers behind it started by asking a really simple but kind of profound question. They basically said, hang on, what if we're going about this all wrong? What if the solution isn't to add more specialized parts, but to strip it all down? Is making things more and more complex really the only way forward?
And their answer was a huge no. The whole breakthrough behind Depth Anything 3 is built on this idea of radical minimalism. It's wild. By simplifying the problem, by boiling it down to its absolute core, they got results that weren't just a little bit better, they were way better.
So how'd they do it? It really comes down to two big moves. First, they stopped trying to solve 10 problems at once. They focused on one single minimal goal. Just predict the depth of each pixel and the camera rate that hits it. That's it. And second, they used a single, standard, powerful AI model, a plain transformer, as the engine for the whole operation. No custom-built parts needed.
And this depth ray idea, it's the secret sauce. It's so elegant. It basically packs everything you need, the 3D shape of the scene, the camera's movement, all of it, into one simple output. This way, it doesn't get bogged down in all this super complex math. It's just cleaner.
Okay, so we've got a simple model. That's great. But how do you train it to be so smart, especially when real-world data is, well, a complete mess? That brings us to the next really clever part of this whole thing, their training method.
It's called teacher-student learning, and the analogy is perfect. You have a teacher model, right? Think of this teacher as a master artist who has only ever worked in a perfect digital world with perfect data. This teacher then creates these perfect blueprints. They call them pseudo-labels to show the student model what good looks like. And the student's job? To learn how to see that perfection, even when all it gets to see is messy, real-world data.
And here you can really see that stark difference. On the left, that's what real-world data often looks like. It's sparse, it's noisy, it's full of holes. But on the right, you see those pristine, perfect labels that the teacher creates. The student model learns to produce that clean image on the right, even when it's only given the messy stuff on the left. It's pretty genius.
So the idea is elegant, the training method is clever, but does it actually perform? Does this minimalist, student-taught model actually hold up when the rubber meets the road? Let's look at the results.
Whoa. Okay, so these numbers aren't just a small improvement. We are talking about a massive leap. Just look at this one task, estimating the camera's position. Across multiple different tests, Depth Anything 3, or DA3, just dramatically outperforms the previous best model. The gap isn't just big, it's enormous. To put a number on it, on average, DA3 is nearly 36% more accurate than the next best thing. Now, in the world of AI benchmarks, a 1 or 2% gain is a big deal. 36%, that is practically unheard of. It's a total game changer. But numbers only tell you half the story. Honestly, the visual proof, what it actually produces, is even more stunning.
So where other methods give you these noisy, incomplete 3D point clouds with big gaps in them, DA3's outputs are just clean. They're geometrically solid, there's way less noise, and you can see all this fine detail. It just looks so much more like reality.
All right, so for our final section, let's talk about the so what. Why does any of this really matter? A more accurate model is cool and all, but what can we actually do with it?
Well, one of the most exciting applications is something called novel view synthesis. Basically, you take a few pictures of a scene, and the AI builds a full 3D model that you can then explore from any new angle. And a really popular technique for this right now, 3D Gaussian splatting, absolutely depends on having a deep, accurate understanding of the scene's geometry.
And to do that well, to get those photorealistic results, you need an AI with a rock-solid understanding of geometry. And as we've just seen, that is exactly where Depth Anything 3 shines. Its superior grasp of 3D space makes it the perfect foundation, or backbone, for these kinds of advanced tasks.
And the proof is right here. This is what's wild. When you use DA3 as the geometry backbone for this task, it produces higher quality results than even models that were specifically designed just for that one job. It proves that better geometry directly leads to better, more realistic applications.
And that, right there, is the key takeaway. The creators don't just see this as another model for one little task. They see Depth Anything 3 as a foundational step, a huge one, toward creating general-purpose AI that can see and perceive the 3D world as fluently as we do. Which really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How long is it going to be until our machines truly see the world in all its depth?